My material is not copyrighted. You can use mine any way you want. If you want to get any of my video materials, they're not copyrighted. On top are Haeckel's fake drawings. Underneath are actual photographs of what he claimed he was drawing a picture of. Now, either he's a lousy artist or he's a liar. Well, it turns out he's a liar. He was convicted of fraud by his own university.
I've heard this claim before, and I've never seen a source for it. As a matter of fact, it seems to be yet another viral creationist myth. All you've got to back it up is an unsourced bald assertion in the New Scientist Pop Science magazine, and frankly, I take that magazine about as seriously as I take Hop on Pop. Either way though, what does it change about modern science? Do you have a point?
Proven to be a fraud. But guess what? Haeckel's fake drawings are still used in textbooks in your state right now. Here's a textbook used at the University of West Florida, in the middle of the Bible Belt. It's only been proven wrong 125 years ago. I know it takes a while to get textbooks up to date, but that ought to be plenty of time.
Your speech is kind of old, and I don't think those drawings are used very commonly outside of a historical context anymore in the textbooks. I have heard that Haeckel's drawings, or at least modernized copies of them, were used in some textbooks until pretty close to the time of your speech. Maybe longer, who knows? Don't quote me on that. I mean, I don't spend all my time leafing through textbooks, but I've heard that the creationist backlash to it caused publishers to finally get their asses in gear and stop using them. And if that's the case, I agree with you on this point, Kent. If there were textbooks being published that contained inaccurate anatomical drawings, they shouldn't have done it in the first place, but they should have at least managed to correct it within a reasonable time frame. That's why textbooks have multiple editions. And if they didn't correct it, the state boards of education, or colleges, or universities, or whoever was buying those books should have demanded it. So I'm not really sure about the details of what happened, but if you guys managed to get one textbook changed to really have up-to-date, well-done drawings, then I think I can actually credit creationists with doing at least one useful thing since the writing of Genesis. But with that said, your reasons are seriously fucked up. Think about it. Your objection's not based on the incongruence of the drawings with reality, but with what you think is the reason that they're incongruent. That shouldn't be your first concern. All faulty information should be purged from textbooks and replaced with the best possible information. So the compelling argument would be, these drawings are incorrect, not, the man who drew these was a fraud! But I guess if I expected you to think like that, I'd also expect you not to try to question evolution by calling Darwin a racist poopyhead too. So maybe it's not even worth objecting.
That's stupid. Those are not gill slits on the embryo.
They're homologous structures. You remember when we discussed homology previously? Yeah, so I'm not going to repeat myself by explaining the concept. The point is, it's legitimate to call them gill slits. I mean, yeah, it's a bit specific and confusing of a term, given that in tetrapods like us, they don't actually develop into gills, while in fish they do, but it's serviceable enough, and it's clear which anatomical feature it refers to in all chordate embryos. And that's kind of the point. Listen, man, if one particular guy's anatomical diagrams are flawed, you know that doesn't make the real-life anatomy of the things he was drawing suddenly change to suit your taste, right?
This one says, it shows the kid's a 5 to 6 week embryo, but it says by 7 months. The fetus looks from the outside like a tiny normal baby, but it's not. It's not a baby at 7 months.
Not a normal baby, by which they mean one that could survive easily outside of the womb, which is incredibly obvious from the context. The very next line makes that clear, but you decided to ignore it just to make a dishonest point. The lungs and temperature regulation systems are not functional. More important, the central nervous system is something something. You covered that up with your citation. Now yeah, I might have suggested a more precise term, such as fully gestated, but like I said, within the context, it's very, very clear what it means. On the other hand, you decided to interpret not a normal baby to mean not a baby at all, which I can only take to mean that you think that babies that aren't 100% normal aren't real babies. You bigoted ass. Why do you hate special babies?
Excuse me? A whole bunch of kids born at 5.5 months survive. 34%.
Yeah. Modern medicine can work wonders. I actually think 34% is a bit on the low side even. But still, those numbers should tell you that being born that premature is dangerous. Luckily, being born that premature is not normal. Unfortunately, since you think not normal babies aren't real babies, that means you don't think premature babies are real babies. Dick chin.
That's stupid to say it's not a baby at 7 months development.
Dude, they didn't say it's not a baby at 7 months of development. You said it's not a baby if it's not normal. Oh, and what's up with the emotional manipulation? Isn't your audience supposed to be learning something about evolution right now? The clock's running.
Maybe you heard about the woman that had surgery on her baby before it was born. They cut the mother open, cut the uterus open.
Yeah, we know. Medicine is cool and stuff. So, therefore evolution is stupid? No? Come on, man, get back to calling evolution stupid. I'm getting bored.
The 5-month-old baby, 5 months in development, reached out and grabbed the doctor's finger.
Oh, shit. Okay, I take it back. You don't have to get back to calling evolution stupid. That little quiver in your voice. The adorable little baby is grabbing the doctor's finger. I know what you're gonna do. You're gonna conflate evolutionists with pro-choicers, and then say evolution is evil, and so it's a bad idea to believe it, even if it's true. Aren't ya?
It's not a baby, huh?
Yeah, it is. I'm sure some pedant is gonna come along and say it's not a baby until it's born or whatever. Fine, I don't care. Just use whatever definition of baby that you prefer. This really seems to be one of those pointless, obsessive sticking points on both sides of the abortion debate, and I'm not part of that debate, and I don't want to be. So just, you do you, man. But personally, I referred to my baby as a baby the whole way through the pregnancy because it already was little baby Elzebub to us. So, whatever.
If it's not a human being, what kind of being is it?
Do people actually say human fetuses aren't human? What other species would they be?
If it's not alive, why is it growing?
You know those little dinosaur sponges that you put in water and... Hold on, nobody's told you that a 5-month fetus isn't alive. Of course it's fucking alive, and not a live fetus is a dead fetus. Nobody would perform an operation on a dead fetus except to remove it.
Why do they keep that in the textbooks? Well, that's the only way to justify abortion.
Called it.
They want you to think it's not a human yet.
Are we still talking about evolutionists, or are we talking about this guy?
Just a fish with gills. No, it's a human the instant it's conceived.
Oh, bravo on that sneaky transition. Very well executed. This textbook says it's a fish with gills. This other textbook says it's not a normal baby at 7 months, which obviously means it's not a baby at all. So they're just telling you it's a fish with gills to justify abortion. Oh yeah! Evolutionists all accept late-term abortions by default because they all promote the abortion justification that, hey, it's just a fish with gills. And eating toddlers, why the hell not just throw that in there too, eh? I mean, after all, they're just fish. Fish with fucking gills, right? I'm sure a large chunk of my audience doesn't consider abortion a horrible thing to do, but your audience definitely does, and you're perfectly aware just how far you went away from making a factual case and into outright demonization of your opponent to score cheap points. The gloves are off now, man.
Love your humor and passion for the truth. I don't agree on everything you believe, but who does? Haha. Main thing, only Jesus saves. God bless Pat. Well, thank you, Pat. Yeah, I don't agree with everything I say either.
And I think you're probably right. You're gross, dude. And I assure you, you're just as shit at arguing as you must think you are if you feel the need to resort to that. But since you've already resorted to it, since you've escalated this conflict, I'm gonna do the same thing now just to have a bit of fun. Only difference is, my demonization of you is gonna be based on fact. Suck it.
An abortion is murder. Plain and simple.
So let's follow your logic. Abortion is murder, and abortion can be justified by showing that human embryos appear fish-like with gill slits due to being descended from fish.
Well, that's the only way to justify abortion. They want you to think it's not a human yet. Just a fish with gills.
In other words, it's okay to murder someone as long as they're descended from a fish. An attitude which seems to be based on the reasoning that you think fish are inferior to humans, so humans descended from fish have inferior ancestry, and that as a result, a human descended from a fish is inferior to a human not descended from a fish, or specifically a human created by God. So, putting it all together, it's okay to murder humans as long as you think their ancestors were inferior. Or in other words, that you think they have inferior genes. So funny, right? Such a funny little twist of the logic to make you seem like you think something that you don't actually think.
I think there is something in the genetic code that deals with the disposition toward gentleness or meanness. And I think in God's perfect law, if we would continually eliminate, execute people that do see certain crimes, we would gradually get a much better society that not so many people have this mean gene in them. Kidnapping, Exodus 21:16, is punishable by death. Cursing your father or mother, verse 17, punishable by death. Causing someone to have an abortion, in verse 22 and 23 of that chapter is punishable by death.
So you mentioned murder, kidnapping. You mentioned smiting or cursing your parents. What about where the Bible says that adulterers should be put to death, homosexuals, or those who commit bestiality and things like that?
Absolutely, yes. And witchcraft. Those, according to the Bible, are death sentences. If indeed adulterers were executed, very quickly society would be much more calm and would. I'm not saying we should do it. I'm just saying we should look at the biblical pattern.
Right, it's the government that should do it. We're not saying that Christians or churches should be carrying out these sentences. We're talking about a pattern for criminal justice in America that's based on the Bible. Is that right?
Exactly correct. That's what our founding fathers started off saying. Look, let's pattern our whole government after the Bible.
Yeah. So let's just add the people with the fish genes to the people with the mean gene when we perform our massive genocide, eh? I really shouldn't use this next clip right now because it's from a bit later in the speech, but I just can't help myself.
Adolf Hitler was a strong believer in evolution. He thought the Jews were an inferior species and needed to be eliminated for the good of humanity.
You've just explained exactly how you can be accurately compared to Adolf Hitler. Good job, asshole. Revenge demonization complete. Now, before I go, I want to reiterate to make this perfectly clear. This abortion nonsense has fuck all to do with evolution. Nothing. Your demonization forms probably the lowest point that we're going to see in this entire series. There are lots of people who accept evolution and reject abortion and vice versa, because one is a scientific theory and one is a moral issue that has to be judged by one's moral philosophy. But no, in your world, Kent, apparently human embryos cease to have the physical features that they actually have after some guy drew them kinda wrong, and the gill slits are just propaganda that the hook-nosed, conniving evolutionists use to make abortion socially acceptable, because I guess if humans are descended from fish, they're not really human anymore, sort of like how if babies aren't normal, they're not really babies anymore. I'm gonna go take a shower. I really feel like I need one. So allow me to treat you to one giant last fuck you for this video. Fuck you, and good night.
You're a fucktard, orange and Kent. You're a fucktard, orange and Kent. I don't think he knows the shit that he believes is just a fucking joke. But what is really sad is people out there buying into the shit he preaches.
Before I go, I want to reiterate to make this perfectly clear. This abortion nonsense...
Okay.
Cover that up with your citation.
Yeah. The belly doesn't matter because I'll pull it high enough.
Okay. Oh, you start here. You start here.
Your citation? Yeah, I might have suggested...
Huh? I got the flow. It's because my trans black hormone therapy is done. Look at my hands. Aren't they gorgeous? You can call me Jamal.